Okie doke. And there we go. People are starting to come in. So hi, folks. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the live captioning. Hey, everybody. Good morning, David. Howdy, Lauren. Hi, Gordon and Alice. How's everybody doing? Good to see some familiar names again. And as always, if y'all want to tell us in the chat where you're joining us from, we would love to hear it. We will give it just another couple minutes for folks to make their way in. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we've had some super dedicated folks joining some of these sessions from like 1 a.m. in their time zones. So I hope it's kind of a reasonable hour for everybody here. Oh, doing good in Australia. Awesome. What time is it down in NSW? Oh, 7 a.m. Thank you, David. That's dedication. Right, give it just another moment for folks to make their way in. Let me post the live link. And we will get started in just a moment. If you're just joining, hi, everybody. Thanks for being here for the final talk. We'll be getting started momentarily. Okay, I think people are slowly trickling in. So whenever y'all are ready, I'll just make a couple of quick housekeeping announcements. Oh, hi there. Greetings in Catalonia and in Alaska. So as usual, hi, everyone. Just a heads up, this session is being recorded and broadcast on YouTube. So if you ask a question, just be mindful that your name might appear in the recording. And we really encourage you to ask any questions, share your thoughts, share your own experiences with the speaker at any point during the talk. You can put them in the chat or in the Q&A. I'll keep an eye on the YouTube comments and share those here as well. And I think y'all know the drill by now. We're on the final day of the festival. So without further ado, I would love to hand it over to Suzanne Gessner to introduce our speaker.
Hey, thanks, Anna. Good day, everyone. My name is Suzanne, and I'm a research and development linguist at the First Peoples Cultural Council, and I'm really happy to be here today and to introduce your speaker. So Tracey Herbert is the Chief Executive Officer of the First Peoples Cultural Council, which is a First Nations-run provincial crown corporation that supports the revitalization of Indigenous languages, arts, and cultural heritage in British Columbia, Canada. Tracey is a member of the Squamish First Nation in the interior of BC. And in her early years, Tracey was raised by her grandparents and elders, so she's driven by a strong sense of responsibility to First Nations people. Tracey has spent 30 years in the service of First Nations communities across the country, motivated by a strong belief that Indigenous peoples must be recognized and respected as experts of their own cultures. In 2018, Tracey was honored with the Order of British Columbia in acknowledgement of her decades of work advocating for BC First Nations people. As CEO, Tracey leads FPCC in providing BC's 204 First Nations communities with training and resources that enable their languages, arts, and cultural heritage to thrive. Under her leadership, FPCC has developed into a globally recognized Indigenous organization that guides innovation in this field of work. During her tenure at FPCC, the number of grants available to communities has undergone incredible growth. Last year, FPCC distributed nearly $24 million in funding. First Peoples programs are designed and delivered in partnership with Indigenous experts. The programs are community-driven, evidence-based, deliver measurable results, and strengthen the well-being of First Nations communities in BC. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracey.
Right, thank you, Suzanne, for that nice introduction. I just wanted to first say that I think this is a really wonderful event, this ALP Festival of Languages that's been organized by Anna and Amanda. Bringing people from around the world, all these language champions is really inspiring to me as well. So I really want to congratulate them for making this happen. Today, I just wanted to talk to you a bit about First Peoples Cultural Council. We've been around a long time. We've made lots of mistakes, which I'm happy to share with you so you can avoid. And also, we've had some successes, and I want to share those as well. We've learned quite a bit along the way, and I think that it's good for us to come together and to share what we've learned with each other to support our fellow language champions around the world. Because certainly I have been inspired by the work of those people that I've been fortunate to meet at UNESCO events and in my travels. And I just am always so grateful that Indigenous people are so willing to share their ideas and what they've learned, and to support anyone that's trying to revitalize their languages. So to the first slide, I think we already talked about this a bit, but we do have quite a bit of diversity in British Columbia. 204 First Nations communities, 34 languages, most of which are severely endangered, and over 90 dialects of those languages. We have half the languages of Canada just in our one province. Which is located on the western part of Canada. Is quite a large and diverse province. I'm living in the territory of the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations on the west coast, but I am from the interior. If you want to go to the next slide, where we have cactus, tumbleweeds, rattlesnakes, and Indian cowboys and cowgirls. And the nations are very, very different and diverse in this beautiful place of British Columbia. I'm from the interior here, and it's quite a different place. The languages come from the land, and the language that comes from the land where I reside now on the West Coast is very different. Our cultures are very, very different and based in the areas that we're from. So there's really, all of the languages are facing threats to the vitality. I also wanted to share a bit about my influences. So just to the next slide. Suzanne talked a bit about this in my biography, but I come from the South Reserve. My great-grandfather, John Piero, was the chief of the band there for many, many years. I lived with my grandparents until I was 5. And of course, horse culture really influenced me as well. And I think gave a lot of the strength that I have today to face things that one needs to face doing language work, like racism and people telling you that your cultures are primitive and not important. All my ancestors were fluent in their languages. I'm not a speaker, but I do have the values that they carried. And as Suzanne had said in the bio, one of those key values is we have a responsibility to help our people with whatever gifts that we might have. So go ahead. So back to First Peoples Cultural Council, it's been around a long time. It was created in 1990. It's Indigenous led. There was a real concern, 30 years ago about the status of our languages and the number of speakers and the fact that people weren't learning their languages in the home anymore. So they decided to develop this Indigenous-led organization that has a couple of levels. It has a board of directors for oversight, but it also has a committee made up of a representative from each of the languages that meets and provides direction and feedback on the work that we're doing as an organization. And our board is made up of also Indigenous members from across BC and one government representative. So we do have that tie with our provincial government. So when we first started, there were very few programs, a little resources. We were kind of set out on our own to fundraise our own money, but now there's a bit more support from the governments, and also a lot more people interested in working on the languages. And a lot of young people are really taking the lead to do this. And it's been a very challenging journey, but we still are raising funding and more funding than ever before. And more than that, because we're more than a funder, we've invested a lot in creating resources and supports to help people be successful in their investments in their communities. Because as you all know, language revitalization work is complex, especially with the high level of diversity that we have in our region. And it takes time to get our communities engaged, to develop the processes that we need to be effective, and to get people involved in the work. Next slide, please. So we've made some progress. I think when I first started, we had about 800,000 a year. And last year we invested 18 million in language programs. And this supported more than 3,000 jobs in communities. And most of the people working in language revitalization work are women, and more than 4,000 immersion opportunities over the years. And the amount of work that's being accomplished by the people who are committed to revitalizing our language, arts, and cultures is inspiring, and really makes us feel that we can achieve our vision, which is that all of the BC First Nations have a stable population of speakers, that every First Nations language in BC is documented and accessible to anyone from the nation that wants to learn. And also very important that Indigenous peoples are the stewards of their language data and their Indigenous knowledge systems. And these are protected and transferred to the future generations. And also for us, because we look at art, cultural heritage, and language holistically, we want to see, plans and infrastructure being rebuilt, both with our art systems, our cultural heritage, and our language, and to make sure that all of that knowledge is being passed on. So some of the things that we've learned, I'm going to share a few of our mistakes and also some of our successes. So next slide. The key, I think, to our success has been to value ideas from the people in the community that are doing the work. We don't deliver language programs. Our organization facilitates opportunities for those language programs to happen. So we invite ideas from people who are doing the work, and we use those and we'll change our direction. And it's not easy, but it will ensure that our efforts are going to be lasting. We engage people on our board, our advisory committee. We talk to people delivering programs so we can learn and make improvements. Constant evaluation is so important in this work. And of course, listening is the key. And we also apply community development approach. It's not just enough to have funding, but to carry out the work of language revitalization, we provide training, resources, technology, and support people to help their language goals and to identify what their language goals. So we have to have all those tools in place in order for our projects to be successful. And then sharing what is possible, I think, has really inspired communities where maybe we have adopted some negative messaging around our languages. They're too hard to learn. It's better to have English. And I found that this could be a real barrier in our work, especially around the trauma around language disruption. So we need to sort of move on from that and to share what is possible, community successes, to engage in that storytelling, to use social media and to use presentations. All it takes is one or two people successfully learning the language and practicing the language in a community, seeing others observe that and say, wow, well, if they can do it, maybe I can give that a try. And it's really been wonderful. We've been really focusing on increasing the number of fluent speakers. So the one-on-one mentor apprentice program, speakers and learners are funded to work on the language program together. You know, seeing other people learning the language, it's inspiring. And over time, more and more people see that they can learn their language. In 2008, we started with 10 teams for the Mentor Apprentice program. But next year, we are going to be supporting nearly 200 teams of people. And many of our apprentices have gone on to raise their children in the language. And we now have some first language speakers in BC. And also many of the people that have been through the Mentor Apprentice program, in terms of, you know, sharing this is under the idea of sharing our successes, are pursuing language revitalization degrees. And it's just had such a wonderful impact on whole communities. Some of our first mentor apprentice teams were in the Wasanich area, and the Wasanich people that are near Victoria, they now have their own immersion school, and they're also teaching the language in English public schools. So some other learnings, and this is around some places that we've made a few mistakes, is to limit awareness types of activities. So in the early days, First Peoples was funding and investing in awareness types of activities. Fun, you know, easy things. Let's make some T-shirts with language on it. Let's, you know, get together and just, you know, once a week or once a month and maybe, you know, talk about the language, that kind of stuff. But we didn't create a single speaker in all those years that we funded these awareness type of activities. And immersion's not easy, but the goal is really to be creating new speakers. And that's why language planning is so important, because you need to set targets and goals to evaluate how you were doing. And it was community that came back to tell us, listen, you guys are funding the wrong things. It was Dr. Robert Matthew that helped First Peoples get on the right track to achieve our mandate. And when we got that feedback from community, we really changed what we were funding, changed the tools that we were developing in order to have that goal of creating new speakers. And, you know, a lot of people are really drawn to awareness types of activities because they're not as hard and you feel like you're doing something, but really you are in fact inhibiting the revitalization of your language. So if you're going to engage in awareness types of activities, I would say, you know, spend maybe 10% of your time doing that. And also technologies, be strategic about the allure of technology. You know, I was really crazy about apps, and we spent a lot of money developing apps, and they are fun, but you really have to have long-term technology blueprints for this. You have to have funding that is going to be there for the long term. Otherwise, you end up having your language data trapped in a technology that goes obsolete. And we all know about that, you know, the wax cylinders, the CDs, and constantly having to transfer language data to new technologies. So I would offer some caution about this because we don't want our language data to be trapped on a different technology. And we also don't want our data to be under the control of people who are from outside our community. The goal is to keep that control within the community for the language data. And there's a number of organizations out there offering language technology. Do your research. We have a paper called Check Before You Tech on our website, and we're really happy to share that with you. And it's really important to not get caught up in that allure of technology, because it is, you know, wonderful and fancy, but let me tell you, it's an old house because we've invested in technology over the years, and we do have a long-term plan, but it costs millions of dollars. So that's one thing to consider. And have a plan and cost it out. This is what I have learned. I spent a lot of time going to meetings, advocating for our languages, and had lovely meetings, but nothing ever happened. And so I thought perhaps we need to do more. We need to leave something with these people. We're asking for money. We need to show them that we can address their concerns if they have concerns. And it really took a while to get support for languages. But I found when we had a business plan and we cost out the investment needed to revitalize languages, the conversations finally got more results. Even if the whole plan isn't funded, you can still use it to advocate and communicate your vision. And it's very good to have those bits cost out, because then you can just take the things that align with a funder's mandate and have them address those pieces of the plan. And when working with governments and states, I found that they have concerns and priorities, and we've addressed those in our plan. We've done a lot of research, we've communicated a lot with governments and funders. So an example of that would be employment was a key issue for government. So with the help of our community partners, we tracked the number of people that were employed by the investments in language revitalization. And that was really helpful to the funder. And it just is so important to know what funders needs and what's possible so you can include them in their plans. And it really helped us make our business case when we could see that it's beyond just language revitalization. It's all the investments and the things that we're doing in community are really making an economic difference as well. Next slide. So the other things that we've been doing is really making languages visible. After decades of colonization, cultural genocide, Indigenous places, languages, and knowledge keepers and artists, they need to be seen and heard. We built an online map called the First Peoples Map of British Columbia that shares the language, cultural heritage, and arts of Indigenous people in BC. So people can see that the languages and the connections to the lands are alive and throughout the province, because there is this sort of myth that we're a people of the past, that we're static, but in fact we're here and we're doing all kinds of really amazing things in our communities. And also it's important to support accessible documentation, recording and sharing of the languages. So we developed firstvoices.com. It's an online repository for Indigenous languages where all the content is owned and controlled by community. And this, again, this idea of this technology that would capture our languages came from community. It was a language teacher and a computer teacher that came to us and they said, kids are going to be on computers. And so that's where the language needs to be accessible as well. We have been since 2000 investing in language technology in order to capture communities, recordings, dictionaries, songs and stories, alphabets. And all of this is controlled by the community, which is sometimes a little different than approaches where a community will bring in an academic linguist to capture all the language data. I think it's important to have those allies. However, ultimately, I feel that the ownership of the language data needs to be the responsibility of the community. We also developed an exhibition with the museum called Our Living Languages, which allowed visitors to hear our words, our stories and experience, and to witness the beauty and the strength of our languages. A version of this exhibition is traveling to smaller museums around the province. And we're also seeing Indigenous languages on street signs and public spaces. Got some really wonderful things happening across the province, a lot of reconciliation, and involvement in parks and renaming of places. And so it's been really a positive to see that work happening. And as well, we're creating routes that help Indigenous languages grow right across the country. For example, we advocated for national legislation to protect Canada's Indigenous languages. And so we have an Indigenous Languages Act that supports people across Canada to reclaim, revitalize, and maintain their languages. And it also includes a mechanism to access sustainable and long-term funding to do the work. Seeking out allies has been very important to the work that we've done. First Peoples has many, many partners in all our work, arts, language, and cultural heritage. I know that people with a passion for languages often find themselves in isolation, working in isolation, but really we all face the same challenges all over the world, and we really aren't alone if we can make that effort to reach out, coming to events like this, joining organizations like the Endangered Language Project. We have allies, but we need to seek them out, and it can take time. We need to seize opportunities where we find them. For myself, it was at the UNESCO tables. You can find allies in surprising places like neighboring countries. We, partnered with the Sami group out of Sweden. They, helped us and trained us in a program that they were offering. And then we started to offer a silent speaker program here in British Columbia. So it's just so wonderful and supportive to find that community, that Indigenous community across the world. And we've also found allies in communities who are our, number one supporters, and governments and universities and our national leadership, Indigenous leadership, and even some corporations like museums and a ferry corporation. And through the Endangered Language Project, we've developed all of these connections around the world, and each one has been really influential on our success because we've been able to sort of seek out the strategies that work, find out what other people are doing across the world, how they've negotiated with their governments, and it's really helped us a lot as an organization. And through the Endangered Language Project, we have access to a global network of experts that may all speak different languages, but we share the same interests and the challenges. And so it's really great. And if you're not part of the ALP network, please join us. We'd really love to have more of as many allies as possible from around the world, because we know we can learn from each other. And I really think that is an Indigenous value, a value of sharing and caring for each other. So Kukshechum, and thank you for letting me join you today. I want to share a little video that we shared at our annual general meeting. It just has some wonderful images of British Columbia that I think you'll enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracey. Suzanne, are you going to play that video?
Yeah, just a sec here.
Perfect. And everybody, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat.
She was born amidst the waves where the mountains meet the sea. Strong, proud, and beautiful with roots that run deep. She's the reason that I got this fire burning inside. She taught me that I got endless possibilities in life. She showed me the way to be just for me to be free. She was born and raised in the high prairie. The smell of sweet grass and Labrador tea. She's the reason that I never back down from a fight. She taught me that I gotta stand up for what's right. She showed me the way to be the woman that I'm meant to be. She showed me the way. Fought all her life just for me to be free. Two strong Indigenous women's resilience and legacy. Two grandmothers that showed me how to be wild and free. She taught me that I gotta march to the rhythm of my home beat. She taught me that I got the power inside of me. She showed me the way to be the woman that I'm meant to be. She showed me the way. I fought all her life just for me to be free.
Okay, so I think we're going to go to a few questions now, and I'm going to start by asking Tracey some of the common questions that we get at First Peoples Cultural Council. So first of all, Tracey, our mandate is to support First Nations in British Columbia, and so we can't fund projects all around the world. How can we help people in other places?
Thanks, Suzanne. Well, I think, again, sharing is an important value to us at First Peoples. And though we don't have the funding to support everyone around the world, we are involved in projects like the Endangered Language Project, which is really about providing tools and resources to people around the world. And also at First Peoples, your team and the language team, we do have developed resources and fact sheets and a lot of language revitalization tools. So we certainly will allow people to take those, to translate those into different languages and to use them. The only caveat is that you don't sell them. So we freely share any tool and resource that we've developed, and we'll share that with anyone who's doing community-based language work, or even at universities, but sometimes that approach is a little bit different.
Okay, thanks. So who does provide the funding for the First Peoples Cultural Council?
Well, we receive funding from many different organizations. The provincial and federal governments are investing in our organization, as well as a few NGOs. So we also have a charitable foundation, the First Peoples Cultural Foundation, that has been doing a great job of fundraising and raising money for language, arts, and cultural heritage. Our language program has around at least 5 funders every given year. And we understand that, funding is the main challenge that people face. And we're hopeful that the Decade of Indigenous Languages can be effective in bringing the state into this work, and to have national language revitalization strategies, and to see more investment in the protection of Indigenous peoples' arts, language, and cultural heritage.
Thanks. And when people are first getting involved in language revitalization, as you pointed out, it's a complex process. And one of the main things people want to know is, what's the first step to take if you're just getting started?
Yeah, I think the first step is a bit of investigation, and to find allies within your own tribe. So, for example, if we look at my tribe, there's 17 communities. So to find out what's going on in those communities, to talk to people about what they're doing, what's been working, and then to really reflect and determine what is the situation in your community. Listen to the speakers, talk to some people that want to learn, find out, what's maybe preventing them from taking the steps to learn their language, and then find out what might meet your needs and adapt it. And the answer is not going to be the same for every language in every country. It's going to be very different. But I really think that the goals should be around the same, which is to create new speakers through immersion. That's something that we found was really effective. And also the documentation of languages, and holding that documentation as a community. Being able to curate your own language data, I think, is really important.
Great. And you've spoken to some of the challenges already, but what would you say has been the greatest challenge for FPCC?
There's been a few, but one of the big challenges is creating allies, I guess, within governments, because governments change, and you maybe have a great relationship and are working with someone and it's going well, and then the government changes and you sort of have to start from scratch. So I think having really good plans and documents that help communicate who you are, what your goals are, and how you're going to get there is really important. And because securing funding has been really, really challenging for us as an organization.
Okay, and if there is a secret to success, what is it?
I don't think there's a secret. I think being optimistic, always being optimistic. And when people tell you no, and this is impossible, that you say, okay, well, I don't know. I think I'm going to give it a try. And having strong relationships and hard work have been key to our success. And again, back to that plan, like having a clear plan for the work, monitoring the success, like evaluating and being okay when things don't work. You really need to have that constant evaluation. And if something's not working, you got to do something about it, not just do the same thing over and over again. And then I think benchmarking is really important. We have that report where we're trying to get a benchmark of where we're at with the languages, and then doing that every 4 years to see if we're making progress, and to see that we're getting more and more learners. I think, and I'm feeling that there is a reason to be optimistic about the future. I know it's really challenging dealing with media, because media always wants to talk about the last speaker of the language. But I think even media is changing a bit. In Canada anyway, there's a lot more positive stories, and they're focusing on community-based successes, which is really great. So storytelling, really telling the good stories about what's happening. And certainly we don't take every opportunity to storytell, but connecting media with community-based people that are having success has been really great this past few years. And it's, I think, making people feel really good about where the languages are going.
Okay, thanks for that. And I do want to leave some time for people in the audience to ask questions if they'd like to. So I'll open it up if there's anything from the audience.
Yeah, don't be shy, folks. I've seen a lot of engagement from you in the last 10 days, and I know we're all tired, but Now is your chance to ask questions or share your own experiences. Well, I just want to say thank you, Tracey, for this wonderful talk. It's always so inspiring to learn about what First Peoples has accomplished over the last 32 years. And I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about experiences you've had learning from and collaborating with other communities internationally. You mentioned working with the Sami on the Silent Speakers program, and I'm wondering if there are other programs that have had that kind of international interchange with FPCC.
Yeah, I mean, we started in the States in looking with Berkeley, and help me out, Suzanne, with the
Master Apprentice, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we, brought someone in, had some training, and then modified the program to work with our diverse communities. And it was interesting because I believe there are quite a few different languages in California, and they're a similar hotspot to British Columbia. So it was really wonderful to bring in trainers and Indigenous people that had been through the program to come to BC to train us and to talk to us about how the program worked. And that was really, really very positive. We've also had different people from Mexico and Taiwan take some of our documentation and our resources and translate those into their languages, which has been really exciting for us.
Okay, and Mariona was asking kind of a similar point there. What is a country or initiative that you look up to in terms of language revitalization? What have you learned from others?
Well, I just found the work that's going on in Hawaii to be really inspiring, especially in their education model and their immersion education in Hilo, of course, Dr. Larry Kimura. And I just was so inspired to go there and to see from baby all the way up to your PhD can be taken in the Hawaiian language in Hilo. And that was really inspiring. And I would like to see more of that here in British Columbia, where our education opportunities for language are immersion based and in control of the nation. And I think that we're moving more towards that. We've certainly seen success with the Hosanich, who are here local to Victoria, and every year they add another year of immersion in their school, and they're doing really well. But I know Hawaii's been doing a lot of great work for a long time, and they had some advantages. They had a lot of documentation, and they also had a foundation as well to support that work, which I think was really, really helped them a lot.
Okay, thanks, Tracey. And Alice was asking what your benchmarks are.
Yeah, good question. So what we're looking at in our report, Suzanne could probably elaborate more on this than I can, are the number of speakers, the number of people learning, and the number of activities going on in the different domains of the community. If you have immersion in the school, or how many hours you have in the school. If you go onto our website, you can look at our languages report. And we have a graph of each language, and we're trying to track the progress in each language. So we can sort of measure over the years if we're creating new speakers and how many new opportunities there are for learning the language. Did you want to add to that, Suzanne?
I'll just say that, yeah, that report is based on a survey that we do with communities. So, the answers come directly from communities and from people in the communities who are doing the work. So, for example, we feel that, those numbers are a lot more accurate than what you see in the census results, for example, because we are asking the people who are doing the work in communities. Someone is also asking, is there a main website where we can find the revitalization resources? So yeah, our main website, and maybe Anna or Amanda, if you want to put it in the chat. So www.fpcc.ca is our main website. And from there, you can also access our other two websites. There's a map of British Columbia with language, arts, and cultural heritage, and also First Voices, which Tracey talked about during the talk.
And a new resource that we're launching is the Language Revitalization Planning Toolkit.
Mm.
And so that, I think, will be really helpful to people. It's sort of a step-by-step guide for a language revitalization planning.
Yeah, it's just in the last stages of design. So I expect that'll be out probably in February. So check back with us. Did we have any more questions from the audience?
I don't see any over on YouTube. So y'all, this is your chance. If you have any other questions for Tracey. Tracey, I'm afraid you may have just been too clear and answered everybody's questions preemptively. Yeah, there's one in the chat.
Okay, so besides digital language revitalization and documentation, what do you think can help communities push their own people to speak their language? Is there a shift of values in the world that can help increase their awareness on the value of language worldviews?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we spend a lot of time talking about that, like how can we get people to engage more in their language? And, you know, we kind of go with the trend. Sometimes some people say, well, it's the domain and phones are the new domain, podcasts, those kinds of things, making the language more accessible and convenient for people. And yet, in terms of success, we know that it's actually getting together and being together with those fluent speakers on the land, language houses, living together for 6 months to be fully immersed in the language. That's really where we're having the most success. And there is that attitude out there about our languages where we have internalized beliefs from outsiders about our languages, that they're not valuable, they're too complex, I can't do it, it's better to learn English. And so that it continues to be a challenge and a barrier for people working in communities. And there has to be an element of healing, an element of engaging with your language and having a new relationship with your language. And if I can use my own mother as an example, she could be an asset to the community because she fully understands the language and can correct people's pronunciation, and yet she has a barrier to speaking the language. And so programs like the Silent Speaker Program could move her past that trauma, and she could become an asset to the community in terms of recording the language. But there is a block, there is that trauma. And so we're trying to address it at First Peoples through the Silent Speaker Program. But it really is on all levels. It's those people that want to learn. It's trying to help the assets that we have in the community to move on from the trauma so they can help us with our language revitalization. It's our political leadership and what they believe. And so one of the issues that we're dealing with is a lot of people think that languages are revitalized in the domain of education. And our belief as an organization is that that's important to have immersion in education, but you can't rely on a single domain to revitalize your language. That it has to be in our chief and councils, that has to be on the land with our elders, in our communities, at our cultural centers, and in our homes. So there's a much larger, more holistic approach where you're doing many different things at the same time. You know, having early childhood education, having language nests, you know, in an elder's home, and then having language camps on the land, learning on the land, doing adult immersion one-on-one outside of an educational institution. All these things, I think, are really a way of communities taking control over their language outside of the single domain of education. I don't know if I answered your question. It was a little bit of a ramble.
And Anna has put some links in the chat there to our Reclaiming My Language Silent Speaker program. And someone is asking, where can I share some of our language tools?
Anna.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. We welcome you to share language tools and materials on the ELP website at endangeredlanguages.com. So yeah, David, if you'd like to reach out, I'd be happy to help you upload those to the site.
I think that's really an important role of the ELP, is to be a place where you can go and find different tools and resources in the subject area that you're looking for. And thanks to Anna, we've got that.
All right, folks, any other questions? Oh, just checking YouTube. We have a comment, not a question, over on YouTube. Just wanted to say thank you again, and I don't speak Irish, so I can't pronounce that, but I think it's thank you in Irish. A wonderful talk to end the festival. It's been a testament to the benefit of allyship that Tracey has been talking about.
Wonderful, thank you. That's great.
And if we don't have any other comments or questions, I'd like to get a big virtual round of applause for Tracey for being here and sharing some closing words to end this festival on a good note. Thank you so much, Tracey. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Suzanne, for your role as a host. Oh, I think I see folks raising their hands as applause. So that's cute. Beautiful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And I suppose at this point, yeah, this was our last talk of the festival. So I'd like to just say a few closing words. I'll try not to ramble on too long myself. But first off, just greetings again to everybody. I'm talking to you from the traditional territories of the Chinook and Kalapuya speaking peoples in Portland, Oregon. And I'm just so happy to be here with all of you one last time, all of y'all folks from around the world during the Festival of Indigenous Languages. I'd love to say some thanks to a bunch of different folks. First, to all the volunteers who helped us moderate the chat sessions and do behind the scenes stuff. Thank you, Shirley Gabber, Rebecca Kirkpatrick, Hercules Singmunda, Josiah Murphy, Leah Pappas, and Vasiliki Vida. Thank y'all. Thanks so much to Mariona Miret for captioning the English interpretations of several talks and lots of good questions. Thank you to the great interpreters who made a lot of these talks accessible in Spanish and French. Elena Efimova, Claudia Sanchez Tafur, Jose Villanueva Senchuk, and Lilian Williams. Big thanks to our partners at the First Peoples Cultural Council, the First Peoples Cultural Foundation, and the Smithsonian Center for Folklife and Cultural Heritage for their support of this event and all the wonderful work they do. And thanks to all of the members of the ELP Governance Council for their knowledge and time and work in guiding this project for a decade. This year actually marks the 10th anniversary of ELP. And very special thanks to Tracey Herbert, the chair of our governance council, who has miraculously steered this project from its very complicated beginnings into this international community we see today. So thank you so much, Tracey, for your vision and your guidance. And also our deepest and humblest thanks to all the elders who joined us as speakers and as guests at this festival. We want to thank you for taking the time out from all that you do to support and lift up your communities and languages and cultural knowledges. And we thank you for your presence, for your words and your good thoughts, and for your humor and your wisdom and the generosity that you offer us as a gift in what we're able to be doing it and how we're doing it in the world. You've made us deeper and richer and better by being here with us. So thank you. And finally, I can't overstate the degree to which we thank Amanda Holmes, the Language Revitalization Associate at ELP. I know you've been seeing my face on screen at these events, but none of this could have happened without Amanda's incredible work behind the scenes. So all of our speakers know she's been tirelessly keeping things on track and smoothing the way for all the speakers and really shaping the whole vision and execution of this event with warmth and good humor. Can we please get a big virtual round of applause for Amanda? Yay! And just in closing, to wrap up this 10 days of incredible learning, I want to take a moment, as Dr. Annika Pasanen suggested, to just make my own positionality really explicit here. That's important. So as a non-Indigenous person from an academic background, I want to be here to amplify the work being done by language communities, to serve as a supporter and an advocate for language revitalization in the wider world, and to really be an accomplice within the academy to create space for Indigenous and minoritized people's voices, knowledge, and realities to be heard and centered in all kinds of different places. So basically, as I hope a lot of other linguists might say, I'm here to be a resource and offer whatever kinds of support my skill set and training can provide. Not expertise, like Dr. Prem Fyok said yesterday, not expertise, just a specific kind of training that I've been lucky enough to have. And part of that training as an academic is trying to synthesize a lot of complex ideas into a succinct summary. So I'm going to do my best to share some of the broad themes that have been woven through the past 10 days. And one of the things that came up again and again at this event was learning from each other. Dr. Lorna Williams, in her opening keynote, described how BC First Nations brought learning about Kuhangareo, or language nests, from Aotearoa. They brought learning about land-based language revitalization from Sapmi, and they took this knowledge back to British Columbia. And a lot of other speakers echoed this theme of learning together. Back in the 80s and 90s, when language revitalization really took off, you had to take physical trips to visit each other and learn. And that was hard to access for a lot of people. But as Dr. Mong Yu said, it's 2022. In the digital age, nobody needs to work in isolation. And so we hope this event and others like it will provide a space for that sharing of knowledge that is so key to moving language revitalization forward. And just as language is connected with every other part of human life, like Dr. Emmanuel Nguyen said, it flows through social and historical reality. We're all connected in this current moment at the dawn of the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. Ideas and successes and encouragement are really, you can see them flowing across borders and between communities to strengthen each other's work. It's beautiful to see. And it's not just learning from each other's work, but a lot of these speakers showed us that it's possible to accomplish amazing things through concrete collaboration, both inside your own community and between language communities, like the Varo language learning platform built with Sami language technologists, or Francisco Post Sakalshot and Irma Tsirin Sokop's heartfelt offer to support other Indigenous communities however they can. And like Dr. Larry Kimura said in his beautiful metaphor, language revitalization is like a va'a, an outrigger canoe. Each part of the canoe and each part of the broader community plays its own role in moving this work forward. Each of us has something to contribute to the work of language revitalization, following the leadership and vision of language communities themselves. And finally, I'll wrap it up. But throughout all these talks, there was this very strong sense of possibility, which was beautiful. Several speakers said something like, giving this talk in my language is something I never could have dreamed of as a younger person. And there are things happening all over the world which may have been hard to imagine 10 or 20 years ago. Films in your language on the big screen, teaching language online to people in diaspora an ocean away, or even the sound of children playing and singing in your language might have seemed like a dream several decades ago. And as Patricia Lageman said in conversation with Jeanette Stephen, it really is a great time to be alive and doing this work. So much is possible if we can just envision it and plan for it and find a supportive community to work towards it together. And ELP is really honored to serve as one of several gathering places for people around the world to come together and envision a bright future for their languages and cultures, to learn from each other and work together. So we really hope that this festival has been a space for you all to connect with new ideas and new collaborators and envision new possibilities. And as Amanda mentioned, in a few months, ELP will be launching a new website and a language revitalization help desk, which is an online space kind of like this one for people to find knowledge and resources about language revitalization, including many of the wonderful resources produced by First Peoples Cultural Council. And it's also a place for people to connect with other language champions and find guidance, one-on-one assistance from experienced revitalization practitioners. So we invite you to keep an eye on our social media. I think Amanda dropped some links in the chat. And if you would like to share about your work as part of the upcoming revitalization directory, there's also a link in the chat to add your program to that community resource. And I have talked quite enough, but on behalf of ELP, thank you all so much for being part of this festival and making it such a joyful and invigorating event. It's really been a pleasure and a privilege to learn from all of you, and we hope our paths keep crossing in the future. We hope that this little community we formed at this festival will continue and grow as a support structure for language champions around the world. This is just the beginning of the decade of Indigenous languages. And after reflecting on where we've been, we are so excited to see where we all go together. And so without further ado, you were promised a raffle drawing to see who would win the Routledge Handbook of Language Revitalization. We've got 3 copies to give away. So I'm going to pull up our little raffle wheel. Let's see, can I do this? Okay, are we all seeing the raffle wheel now? Do we see like a big spinny wheel on the screen? I hope so. Okay, so let's see. First winner is all right, Anne-Sophie Boilly. Congratulations. We'll reach out to you by email to connect you with your ebook copy. Our second winner is oh, congratulations, Aquabome. You get a copy as well. And our third winner, Jonathan Palomino, congrats. So we've got language champions around the world who are going home with a big old book full of information and ideas about language revitalization. Congrats, y'all. We'll reach out to you. And thank you all again so much for being here, for being part of this festival. We really look forward to seeing you at future events and wishing you all health and safety and joy to you and your families and communities in the coming year and coming decade. Thank you so much, everybody. Want to drop a goodbye in your language in the chat if you'd like, and we'll see you in the future. I wish I could read these goodbyes, but I won't pronounce them right, but it has been great to see all of y'all and be here with you. Goodbye.